Recording in progress.
Members of council and the general public, Mayor Edwards will be on shortly, and we will start the meeting in approximately 2 minutes. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Mr. Mayor.
How you doing? I want to call to order this millage rate for the city of Southport, the property tax. On this date, Mr. Clerk, what's the date?
Today is August 10th. This is the first hearing.
First hearing, August 10th. Okay. Let's do a roll call, Mr. Clerk.
11.
Roll call vote. Roll call for today's meeting. The Honorable William Bill Edwards, Mayor.
Here.
The Honorable Catherine F. Rao, District 1.
Present.
The Honorable Carmelita Gums, District 2.
Here.
The Honorable Helen Z. Willis, District 3.
Here.
The Honorable Naima Gilliard, District 4.
Present.
The Honorable Corey A. Reeves, District 5.
Accounted for.
The Honorable Councilmember Khalid, District 6.
Present.
And the Honorable Mark Baker, District 7. Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum, and I'm sorry, today is August 11th. August 11th, first hearing.
I wasn't sure, that's why I asked you. Let's proceed.
Yes, the first item on the agenda is the first reading of an ordinance to establish the 2021 millage rate for the city property tax for the city of South Fulton, Georgia, and for other lawful purposes. Establish of the millage rate is at 12.899 mils for 2021. And we would turn it over to the Finance Department and Ms. Rachel Bembry, Interim Finance Director.
Good morning, Mayor and Council and citizens. If we can start the PowerPoint presentation, we'll begin this morning. It is my pleasure to provide the presentation preceding the first public hearing for the 2021 millage rate supporting the fiscal year 22 budget. Next slide, please. We'll begin with a little property tax 101 lesson to cover some basic principles. The millage rate is the tax rate that is applied to the assessed value of property to calculate property tax amount. It is typically stated as dollars per thousand. So in our example here, 5 mils would be stated as $5 per thousand of assessed value. We'll work through an example of this calculation later in the presentation. Next slide, please. The market value or the fair market value is the estimated amount of the property which can be bought or sold in the market. The assessed value is 40% of that market value and is the basis used for calculating our property taxes. For example, a home with a fair market value of $150,000 will have an assessed value of $60,000 for the calculation of property taxes. And you can see in the sample calculation here that the tax on this example would be $300 when applying a millage rate of 5 mils per thousand. Next slide, please. There is also a rate known as a rollback rate. The rollback rate is the millage rate that would raise the same amount of tax revenue as last year based on this current year digest. So in other words, the values of the property in the city have increased from the prior year. This is called revaluations or reassessments. For property taxes levied by the city to produce the same amount of taxes, so as though those property values did not increase, the millage would need to be 12.139. The property tax revenues associated with those revaluations of property is just under $2 million to the city's revenues. Next slide, please. So again, the current recommendation is to maintain the millage rate of 12.899 and is not increasing that millage rate from last year. Next slide, please. To further clarify the 6.26% increase that was seen by many in the tax ads, this is somewhat of a hypothetical increase. When comparing the 12.899 millage rate to the option of a rollback rate of 12.139, this resulting in an increase or a decrease, depending on how you look at it, of 6.26%. So in other words, this is the increase. The 6.2% increase is the increase in property tax revenues the city will see due solely to revaluations of real property. The only taxpayers that will see an increase are the taxpayers whose property values increased. Another way of looking at it is a home with $175,000 value in the 2021 digest is going to pay the same taxes as that same $175,000 home did in the 2020 digest. So let's look at an example. Next slide, please. The $175,000 fair market value is used because it is the average value of homestead properties in the city, rounded to the nearest 25,000. So if we look at this example, the right side column shows the current property tax calculation, the $70,000 assessed value. We apply a local exemption. So on the taxable value of $40,000, this home would be paying $515.96, same amount that it paid last year. If the city chose to roll back the millage rate, that same homeowner's tax bill would be reduced by $30.40 per year. That's $2.53 per month to the average homeowner. This is a nominal relief to the average taxpayer, but a significant impact to the city's budget. Remember, the impact to the city is just under $2 million, which represents about 2.6% of the city's revenue budget for fiscal year 22. Next slide, please. That concludes my presentation. So I'd open the floor for any questions, and the public hearing can begin.
Mayor, I have a question. Is the public hearing do we ask our questions now or wait till you close the public hearing?
Mr. Mayor, I think you're muted.
I will open the public hearing. I heard you, Councilwoman Willis, and what I would do, allow that after I close the public hearing. Is that okay? All right, Mr. Adams?
Yes, sir.
Open the public hearing. What do you?
Yes. Mr. Mayor and members of council, we did receive one comment for today's public hearing. And prior to reading this comment, I would like to let the public know and encourage them to send in any comments or questions they have regarding the millage rate for this evening's public hearing at 6 p.m. To make a public comment, you can go to the city's website and click on public comment, and the form is still active. Thank you. Today's public comment is from Richard Snellings, who lives on Loch Lomond Trail in District 1. He states, on Thursday, August 5th, the Communications Department issued a notice to us utilizing the official Nextdoor account that stated the city of South Fulton intends to increase the 2021 property taxes by 6.26% over the rollback rate. Now, all of a sudden, the rate is not increasing. I guess the mayor and council are playing election politics and does not want the taxes increase so close to the election. One hand says you are increasing it, whereas the other hand says you are not increasing it. As with many other things with the current administration, nobody knows what's really going on. Here is a great idea. Stop wasting our money. Then you won't have to raise our taxes or use money grabs like code enforcement and cameras in school zones. Try that first before you talk about raising taxes. As a homeowner, I am sick and tired of having to finance the excessive spending of this city, so I oppose any tax increases. Operate within your means like the households that you serve are required to do. That's the end of the comment and end of public comment.
Okay, I'm going to close public comment. Councilwoman Willis. Councilwoman Willis.
Yes, Miss Bembry, if you don't mind, yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay, Miss Bembry, if you don't mind, last year, what was included in the presentation is why the recommended millage rate was recommended. And so you gave a little detail yesterday. If possible, can you explain why you're recommending that we should keep the millage rate at
Yes,
the current rate? And again, understanding that it's not technically an increase of our millage rate was causing the 6.9 increase is the reevaluation of properties. But why are you recommending that we could maintain the millage rate that we currently have versus the rollback rate?
Yes, ma'am, glad to. I can confirm that increase is representative to the revaluations, as you stated. The reason we're not choosing to recommend the rollback or any alternative rate to what the current rate is simply because in balancing the fiscal year 22 budget, we begin with our revenue projections, personnel, and we examine all of our departmental requests. And in balancing that budget, which can be a difficult task between service level, desired service levels, and then the cost of those desired service levels, it's somewhat of a balancing act. We put in our best our ideal budget, and we're about $2 million short. And as the mayor mentioned, certainly contributing to that factor is the loss of intergovernmental revenue from from the county. But in balancing that, we had to make some difficult decisions and cut some things we would have desired to make a balanced budget. If we had recommended any other rate besides maintaining the existing rate, we would have further exacerbated that issue and had to really make even more difficult decisions about what to keep and what to eliminate in the fiscal year 22 budget. So that is the reasoning behind our recommendation.
You still have the floor, Ms. Willis.
Yes, thank you. Can you please update that in your PowerPoint?
Yes, ma'am.
Would it be too much trouble to ask you to update it by the time we have our second public hearing?
No, ma'am, that's not unreasonable.
Okay, thank you.
You finished, Ms. Willis?
Yes, I yield.
Mr. Khalid.
Thank you so much. Let me make something happens every time with you all hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bembry. I think that your presentation in the beginning was awesome. That was like great political education. I plan to put that snippet of the video in my newsletter. I would ask if we could have our communications department either just put that clarification out or just find some way to explain that more. And also, and I sent an email about this, but if we could put some sort of graphic together that has a schedule of these meetings with the link that we could disseminate to our residents just so we could get a little bit more feedback and engagement, that would be great as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Khalid. We have Dr. Rao.
Thank you. I want to kind of piggyback on something Councilwoman Willis mentioned, and you mentioned yesterday. As we deal with the transition of food and industrial, I think it's important to kind of give people perspective. As when we started the city, we had to secure a TAN because when the revenue was coming into the city, it's very much the same situation. And so while we talk about the loss of revenue from the county, it's related to us providing, fire service to that area. I think, some explanation would be helpful. Although we are receiving food and industrial, the revenue lags in terms of when we receive it, just like it was when we became a city.
Absolutely. Okay. Anyone else? Let me just add something in conclusion here. All of us as property owners, every year the county does an appraisal of our properties. Sometimes those appraisals don't reflect highly of you, or sometimes it does. I just want to also, as you talk to us about why we do certain things, I think that when you get an appraisal that is not fair to you, and when I mean by fair, that it is much higher than the comparables around you, I think that it's incumbent upon you to go to the county and to appeal that appraisal, which would invariably lower your taxes. I want to put that out there because, the onus is not only on us, it's also on the taxpayers to make sure they do what they can to make sure that their tax values are in line. So I just wanted to say that. So that's my conclusion. Anyone else have anything? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I move that we adjourn the first public hearing for adoption of the fiscal year 22 tax millage rate.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Clerk, would you vote, please?
Roll call vote to adjourn. Councilmember Rao,
Yes.
Councilmember Gomes,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Gilliard,
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves, Councilmember Reeves, Councilmember Khalid,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker, Mr. Mayor and Council, we are adjourned at 10:19 a.m.
Thank
Aye.
you.
Did you give
I
me
see you.
Corey
Okay,
Reese.
Mr. Reed said aye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all so much, and we'll see you at 6.
Recording stopped.